All right. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here today. So could you start by filling us in with your name and your position?
Yes, I'm Shannon Kimball-Auth, and I'm with the Community Adaptation Program of the American Red Cross, but I'm here today specifically as the chair of the Lake County COAD.
And that's a new development. I mean, it's a fairly new organization in Lake County, I believe, right? A couple years.
Yes. We've been trying to start the COAD since 2015, which is, of course, when we met.
Yes.
And it's gone through various attempts that have worked better or for worse, but nothing that has really coalesced. But now we have more than 30 agencies that are part of the COAD, and we now have 2 successful fire responses, as well as a resilience hub network of 10 resilience hubs that activated for extreme heat. So we really have tested the relationships and our capacity to function as a COAD just this year in ways that we haven't done since 2015.
That is awesome to hear. Those are some great ways that you've put it right into practice.
Yes.
So what was your intention for being here at the conference today?
So my intent for being at the conference was to see how the Lake County COAD can interact with the Northern California COAD. And many of those partnerships they're people that we already know. Like, you were present in Lake County for the Valley Fire, so I've known you since 2015. But there are other partners that I don't know. And so the idea was that I would be able to come to the Northern California VOAD and see if this is something that we need to be better connected to as our county COAD.
And have you found anything of value that you'd like to share so far?
Well, I think my favorite thing, honestly, so far was that video. We have so many people that, because the COAD, even when we've had a COAD in Lake County, it hasn't really functioned well. So people don't understand what the strength and the benefit of the COAD can be. We have some partners that are still sort of on the fence about the benefit to the county as a whole. And I feel like that 5-minute video is just such a great explanation of what we do, particularly for the county partners.
Exactly. Yeah, it shows the county interacting
Yes.
with the community-based organizations and the COAD, and yeah, I think it's a great representation.
Yeah, so I loved it. And it's funny, I'm seated at a table with all Red Cross people, none of whom I've met more than once before, some of whom I've never met before. So even with my own agency, it's a great opportunity to just meet people that are doing different parts of disaster response.
Wow, that is awesome. So you've also mentioned that you've known Hope Crisis Response Network since
Yes.
2015. So just a little bit, can you share a little bit about our relationship and how that's gone even the last year we've interacted again?
We have. What I love about Hope Crisis Network is that you provide things that the community needs. I kind of had in my brain that you did one thing, but actually you do what is needed, which is a great COAD model. So in 2015, Hope City was there building houses. In the Boyles Fire last month, Hope City was there doing registration and helping us have a single platform for case management. I didn't even know that Hope City did that. Or Hope Crisis Network, HCRN. It's all the acronym things. But the real lesson was that the work of HCRN is broader because the need in the community is broader, and you're not trying to do the same thing everywhere, but really what is needed. And actually, it was HCRN that started us trying to communicate with agencies that are doing 3D printed housing. Mm-hmm. Because Kevin was involved up in, after the Camp Fire, the one house that did get built pretty quickly. And so we're looking at what can we do to increase climate adapted fire resilient housing in Lake County, because we still have not built back from the Valley Fire, and we've had additional fires since then. So we're about 50% of the way built back from that fire, not even counting these additional fires. So looking at what those potentials for rebuild are.
Yeah,
that's good.
Which is a great point as well, is that talk about recovery is a marathon and not a sprint. When we look at how far or how difficult it is for rural counties like Lake County that are less, have less of just a lot of things, right?
Yes.
And need more help as the recovery goes on.
Right, because we don't have all of the things in place. We don't have enough inspection. We don't have enough contractors. We don't have enough insurance. We have inadequate unmet needs tables happening. And each fire is not its own thing. Each fire builds upon the poverty that the previous fire already exacerbated. And so working through those processes has been difficult. What I will say, one thing, and Hope City HCRN has been a part of this, that we learned in 2015 was to collaborate. Absolutely. So even when the co-ed wasn't working, we had partners that were coming together to do that work, even when the systems didn't support it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate all that you've put into the conference, but can you begin by sharing your name and a couple of your positions?
Okay, so Valerie Brown, I'm the Deputy Executive Director of United Policyholders. I am on my 8th year of San Diego VOAD president for way down south. And I have been on the NorCal VOAD board for about 4 years now. And then my other new hat is I am running as the program director for a disaster case management program for the San Diego January 2024 floods.
Okay.
So I'm standing up a program there.
Yes, and you're keeping very busy, I would say, with all your different
Copious
hats.
free time, yeah, lots of hats. Yeah.
Well, so we're here today at the California Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster Conference. And so as we think about this conference, what is one of the goals that you had for this conference?
I think the biggest goal was just getting people comfortable with the fact that they all look different because our communities are different, and having that understanding that what you're doing is creating a framework for your community to prepare and respond and recover from disaster, and by pulling this plurality of voices into the space, we're really able to show people there is no right answer. There's no one-stop shop that exists to come in and save the day. You're going to put that puzzle together yourself. And that was my goal for pulling this, making this happen, is that we were going to socialize that idea that there is no one true way, and give everybody the confidence to do it, because it when you look at it, it feels overwhelming because you feel like everybody is depending on you. That's not the case. Most of them don't even know VOAD exists, right? In your county, most people don't know VOAD exists. However, when they find out about you, it's like VOAD is going to solve every problem. No, VOAD is a framework to solve problems and problem solve, and getting people comfortable with that so that they invest the time and the relationships to pull this together for their community was key to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the keynote speaker definitely worked on that, as he talks about disruptions and really tailoring things to what fits for you,
right,
and your community. And so because every disaster is local, we can say a lot of things, but the flood that you're working on in San Diego is so different from
any flood I've seen in California. Yeah. It's in the middle of an urban center and in the area that government caused the flood by not cleaning storm canals, channels. And these are people who never would have expected in the heart of the city to be impacted by a disaster. And yet some people had 10 feet of water in their home.
Yeah, which is just unbelievable. It's like hurricane
flood.
Yeah.
But we're, we get 11 inches of rain in a year, not in 4 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So any valuable insights that you've gained already?
I think the biggest takeaway from Monday and today's presentation is just understanding and having that cultural competency in your community to know what those unique needs are in your community, be it access and functional needs, immigrant populations, English as a second language, transportation challenges, seniors, hearing aids, whatever those are. Having that lens when you're putting together your planning is going to pay dividends. It's not something that I think we think plans, not accessibility to the plans. And so that's one of the takeaways that I had.
Yeah, that's a good one. And can you talk a little bit about your relationship with Hope Crisis Response Network?
Yes. So I am vice chair under Kevin, who is our chair for NorCal VOAD. And then with that disaster case management program I'm running in San Diego, we are actually subcontracting with HCRN to provide what is our construction cost analyst, but basically to run our volunteer repair program. And so we have your team now on site providing volunteer coordination of teams from across the country and working with locals and providing that construction supervision to be able to do the repairs. So right now we have 40-some volunteers from all across the country who drove and flew out, and they are spending a week working on 8 houses.
Yeah.
And it's really cool.
That's awesome. So thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing today.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. If you could introduce yourself and your partner here and tell us who you work or serve with.
My name is Lee Grayson, and I'm the Northern California Area Coordinator for HOPE Animal Assistance Crisis Response. And this is my partner, Minnie, and she does all the work.
Yes, she does. She just pulls all of us in. So tell us a little bit about what your agency provides.
Yes, so our animals are actually considered working dogs, like police dogs or other canines like that. So they can go anywhere with us. They travel by trains, planes, boats, cars, and we go wherever crisis invites us to come and serve. We're not first responders, but we provide emotional support for victims and individuals who are experiencing a crisis or a devastation of some kind.
And during the conference earlier, you mentioned that they have to go through pretty extensive training.
They do. Our animals start out as therapy dogs, and after they've had a year of therapy training and therapy work in hospitals, airports, and a variety of places, then they can be screened and trained as crisis animals.
And what do you see in survivors when you bring Minnie in?
So we can see individuals who run the gamut of emotions. They can be angry, they can be frustrated, they can be shut down and in tears. And as soon as Minnie comes up to them, the vast majority of them just relax. They smile. We say we actually provide smiles in crisis situations.
I like that. So as part of this conference, did you have a goal coming in today?
My biggest goal was to introduce Minnie and the program to all of the members of VOAD. The more we're integrated with groups like that, they're the individuals who invite us, and we never come unasked. We always are specifically requested, and we come at the appropriate time.
Yeah, and actually you've worked with Hope Crisis Response Network a couple of times this last year. We've seen you and Minnie, and so I don't know, can you speak to our cooperation as well?
Yes, I originally was on a VOAD Zoom, and that's where I first met your husband, Kevin. And then when Minnie and I responded after the fires up in Red Bluff area, we met you there, and then we responded sometime later to the fires in Clear Lake area. And both times we were responding and helping out at the local assistance center.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and Minnie are some of my favorite disaster service workers, just because who doesn't love this little face, huh?
She really does do all the work. I just hold the leash.
Yeah, she really is. So it's amazing how calm and just connected she is to the people that you encounter.
Temperament is a big part of the dogs that we accept into the program.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to mention?
No, I think that covers pretty much everything. We are a 401(c), and Hope has been a part of disaster response for 25 years now, and we are throughout the U.S., including Alaska and Hawaii, and up into Canada.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today and sharing your story.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Could you start by giving us your name and your position and your work within California VOAD?
Absolutely. So my name is Tonje Switzer. I am the Executive Director of the Long-Term Recovery Group of Santa Cruz County. I was recently elected to the Executive Committee of the California VOAD.
Yes, thank you for joining us today. So tell me a little bit about your work down in Santa Cruz and what you've been working on there.
Yeah, so we have had 3 disasters since 2020. We had a massive wildfire, the CCU Lightning Complex fire back in 2020 that took 911 homes. And then in 2023, we had 2 back-to-back atmospheric rivers with multiple, hundreds of homes damaged as well. And so I've been working on that long-term recovery group since 2021. I joined, was personally impacted by the fire and lost our home. And so I have that personal experience of rebuilding our own home, and then took that in, to my work in social services in Santa Cruz County, and worked on building that long-term recovery group. And we're currently in the process of standing up a volunteer rebuild program, and we actually have volunteers in the field right now. We got a home through rough inspection last Friday, and so we're in the field, and we're working on getting families home.
That is awesome. That's great news.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I know the other day one of the county officials was in who commented on how many homes have been rebuilt since the CZU fire, which because of numerous challenges, because of the terrain and those types of things, is still at like 11%, I think, I figured out.
Yeah, so it's out of 911 homes lost, we have 122 homes that have achieved the final occupancy permit. So, it's a very small percentage. Around 200 homes have sold. And we have around, 80-ish homes that cannot get through pre-clearances at this point, which has to do with geological hazards up in the mountains, environmental health, which is septic issues, and also a lot of homes with single egress and access roads that cannot get CAL FIRE pre-clearance. And so we're working on, with those properties, we're working on advocacy to see if there's a way that we can actually get them through to rebuild. And then we have a group between 50 and 100 that have passed pre-clearances but have yet to submit a building permit. And those are sort of our low-hanging fruit for our volunteer rebuild programs, where we could come in. The reason they usually have not submitted for permits is because of the cost, and so they're either or underinsured, and so that's where we need to come in and understand what are your barriers to build, and can we support you with volunteer labor to get you back in your homes.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be able to do the full amount that are in that category, but we're certainly going to go in and try and help as many as possible.
Absolutely. So you do have a big job ahead of you, just because there's a lot of things going on there. And I mean, the number of people that have rebuilt includes insurance, people who were insured and able to rebuild, and those who are just trying. So, you've been working hard. I know that.
And there's lots of work to be done. And I was just talking to Bruce from the Campfire Collective, and they're even more years, into their recovery, and it's a long haul. It's a marathon, and so we're just looking ahead to do as much as we can, as soon as we can, but knowing that it's going to take a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming into the conference, can you tell me one of your goals or intentions?
Yeah, I think whenever I go to conferences like this, I really want to network. I really want to meet new people, learn what others are doing. I think as the more that we can avoid reinventing the wheel, the better it is. When disaster strikes, it's we got to think on our feet. So if we can. If we can preload with knowledge that others that have come before us and have done these things, and so that we can hit the ground running, and that's where VOADs come in, right, and provide those toolkits and that experience so we can lean on each other and learn. And the best way to do that is to get together when there's blue skies, and we can actually sit down and have conversations about what we've done in the past and how we plan on responding in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you have been working with HCRN over the years too,
Yes.
and so we're just happy to have you here. I don't know if you want to speak to that as well.
Absolutely. So we, when we started out as a nonprofit organization, and we were in the process of filing, with the IRS to get our tax exemption, we were ready to receive some donated funds to hire staff, but we didn't have a place to receive the money. And so Hope Crisis Response Network has been very generous in being our fiscal sponsor for now coming up on a year. We are about to be ready to do this on our own now that we are a 501c3, but without the support of Hope Crisis Response Network and also the expertise of Kevin and Valerie, when it comes to volunteer rebuilds and just learning about what does that look like? How do we do this, right? And so it's just invaluable support that we've received from this organization.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate the partnership, and like I said, I know you've been working so hard to get some traction and get moving ahead, and just we appreciate that so much.
Thank you.
So, and congratulations on being part of the executive team now
Thank
too.
you.
So,
Yeah, it's an honor.
yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us here.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you being here. And so, could you start with giving us your name and your position?
My name is Bruce Yerman. I'm the director of the Campfire Collaborative, and we're the long-term recovery group helping families recover from the 2018 campfire.
Right. And so, wow, you're still helping families recover from 2018?
Yeah, wow. And but I think it's going to be a few more years still.
It is a marathon, right?
Yeah, it is a marathon. There's been great progress, but it takes a while.
Yeah. And just to let people know, let's tell them a little bit about the campfire and what, because of the extent of the destruction in Paradise.
Yeah, almost 6 years ago to the day, this week on Friday will be the anniversary. And in a very short time, and mostly in one day, 18,000 structures were destroyed and 50,000 people evacuated. And most of those structures that were destroyed were homes, all up in Butte County.
Yeah. So you've been busy and working on the long-term recovery group. So what are some of the key aspects of your job?
The long-term recovery group, we're sort of the center of 100 organizations, even more than 100, and all of them come together at the Campfire Collaborative to help individuals and families rebuild their lives after the fire. And we provide the organization, the structure, and even a place for donors to donate to help individual families with unmet needs.
Yeah. So today you presented as part of the California VOAD conference. And so what was your goal as part of that presentation?
I had a personal goal, and one was gratitude. There's a lot of people and a lot of organizations at this conference that have helped with the recovery in the campfire, including Hope Crisis Response Network. And so simply by being asked, I was honored and felt that I should be here, because that's my way of expressing gratitude back to to all of these organizations. But my role today was to explain long-term recovery groups a bit, how they function and why they're important. Because this is a group of people, some who've had experience with long-term recovery groups and others who it's the first time they've been introduced to what a long-term recovery group is.
Yeah, there's a lot of people at the conference who are fairly new to long-term, to serving in disaster. And so, yeah, you gave a great overview. And spoiler alert, Bruce and I are friends and we've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
But, we work together. So share a little bit about the relationship with the Campfire Collaborative and HCRN.
So HCRN was one of the organizations that we call a volunteer rebuild organization. There are very few of these, and they are very, very important to a long-term recovery group, especially the campfire. HCRN provided homes through volunteer rebuilds to families in need, families who could not recover in any other way. And disaster case managers would vet these clients, and HCRN would step in and provide volunteers from all over the state and sometimes even all over the country to help keep the costs down to put a family back into a home.
Yeah. We were so privileged to be able to serve in the campfire and to rebuild homes for families.
Well,
And
we thank you tremendously.
yeah, it's a privilege to see the recovery that's happened in the Campfire Collaborative and in Paradise and Butte County, and also to look forward to that continuing as you keep working along.
I believe you completed 39 homes
Yes, we did.
in the town of Paradise, and that puts you as one of the top builders in the town.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting too.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us here today. Can we begin by giving me your name and your organization that you're involved with?
Yeah, my name is Titus. I am the Executive Director of Crisis Cleanup and the author of How to Prepare for Everything.
Aaron has been our keynote speaker as part of the California VOAD conferences this week. And so we're going to talk a little bit about your book and your workshop, actually. First of all, I like your description of not preparing for disaster, but preparing for disruptions. Can you kind of explain the difference?
Yes, so when we focus on the bad things that can happen to us, the disasters, we don't have a lot of control over the bad things that happen to us. If we did, we'd make sure bad things didn't happen to us. And so that causes a lot of FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we find are so prevalent in the prepper space generally. However, we have a lot of control or power over how we respond to the disruptions that disasters cause. So it doesn't matter whether the power outage was caused by a fire, a flood, a backhoe, or grandma backing into a pole. If you just prepare for the power outage, then it doesn't matter which disaster causes it. And if you'll prepare for a few disruptions, then it no longer matters what disaster comes your way.
Yeah. So very good. It lets people get a handle on preparations without the overwhelming fear and uncertainty, as you mentioned.
So we want to translate that FUD, that fear, uncertainty, and doubt into empowerment. And then the second component is that we need to prepare together. Preparing together and having strong social connections is a better indicator of both short-term survivability and long-term resilience than any other factor.
So in your workshop today, people broke into groups and picked a disruptor.
Yep.
And then you encouraged them, kind of explain what you encouraged them to do.
Yeah, so that's the second component. We prepare together in groups, as communities, as churches, in this case in a big conference setting. And we brainstorm coping strategies and solutions. And there's only one rule, and that is if you hear something useful from someone else, you write it down. And if you hear something that's not useful, you just ignore it. And by brainstorming together, we're both creating better and stronger relationships. And we're also sharing ideas that you may not have otherwise thought of.
And I think the other thing that came out of our group is that you actually see the differences in the backgrounds of people. So I wasn't in a group with people that I'm normally connected with, so we all have different backgrounds, different needs. But this workshop addresses that.
Yeah. So minor differences between people, you and I, we share a language, we share a culture, we share a country. Minor differences in between people make a huge impact on how we prepare. So we share a language, a culture, a nation, and yet minor differences like the number of children that we have, or whether our children are grown, or whether we have pets, have an enormous influence on how we prepare. So it's like astronomically impossible for me to write down on a piece of paper all the things that you should do. But if we give people a framework to identify coping strategies and solutions that work for them and brainstorm in their communities, then we've created a way for them to identify what they already know and structure it in a way that becomes quite workable.
So as you come into a workshop like this, what's your goal for the participants?
So the goals are, first, to give people a framework and a vocabulary to talk about disaster relief that is empowering rather than fear-inducing. That's number one. Number two, to create a preparation plan that you actually believe because it's in your handwriting, Number 3 is on the worksheet we have coping strategies and solutions over time. And when you prepare is just as important as what you're preparing for. A power outage that lasts for a couple of hours or a day or two, yet you prepare for that very differently than if it lasts for 2 weeks or much longer. So we take that first 3 days of preparation, and everything in that first 3 days, that's the beginning of your personalized 72-hour kit. Mm-hmm. And then the last thing is we want you to walk away with stronger relationships. Mm-hmm. We want you to get to know your neighbor, again, because you're part of their support system and they are a part of your support system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can definitely with neighbors, with other community organizations, with faith-based, with your houses of worship.
Absolutely.
Definitely, these are workshops that they can do. And people, you are an author, and your book, How to Prepare for Everything, lays out these steps, and I just think it's really appropriate for people as they get ready and look at different disasters and as they've been happening.
Yeah, well, and the reason I wrote the book is because it can't be Aaron going everywhere and sharing workshops, right?
You tried.
I do have 11 kids, and I like them, so I like to see them every once in a while. And my wife likes me to be around as well, and I like that too. But we really want to get the method into the hands of community groups, everywhere.
Yeah, awesome. So with crisis cleanup now, let's do a little description of that.
Yeah, so crisis cleanup it's kind of like a Craigslist for the disaster relief, the cleanup portion of disaster relief. So as we're talking, hurricanes Helene and Milton happened a month or two ago. And we opened up a hotline for the public to call. And then more than 2,100 volunteers from hundreds of organizations across the country answered those calls in their homes. We've received 117,000 phone calls so far. Wow. And answered a return to all of them. People will then request help. And then we put that request on a shared map that's available to, again, those local community organizations and churches and CBOs and things. They will then claim the case, go help the homeowner, maybe take a tree off the roof or muck out a basement, put a tarp or things of that nature, and then they close it out. And so everybody can see what everybody else is doing. And we have more than 600 organizations all working together, representing tens of thousands of volunteers, and helping as many people as we can in the time that we have the volunteers.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now HCRN has worked with you on a couple disasters. I know in Pajaro last year we used it quite a bit to register families who needed help with the muck outs and everything. So
yeah, we've done more than 280 disasters so far, and after a while, they are a little bit hard to keep apart. Whenever you work in disaster relief, the relationships that you make are, they just seem really deep because you're serving side by side in these really austere conditions, and so with so many of my friends, it's like either I've known you for a week or 10 years. I can't remember which. So yeah, that's kind of what it is with HCRN and Kevin.
Yeah, very good. Well, we appreciate you being here and for you sharing this wisdom with everybody who's attended.
Well, I think my fountain of knowledge is most of the time just actually a burst pipe. But yes, thanks for having me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us here today. Could you start by giving us your name and your agency and department?
Sure. I'm Shauna, Aragon. I've got the privilege of working with Northern Valley Catholic Social Services, which we call NVCSS for short around town. And I get to work in the Disaster Services Department.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what the Disaster Services Department does.
Sure. We do pre-disaster, such as education, resiliency, training, and outreach. We also work during the response phase, and we're active in the recovery phase that's afterwards, which could be many, many years long. And we also work with the county VOADs as well.
Yeah, so a lot of different areas that you cover, number of counties.
Yeah, currently we work in primarily the northern 8 counties. So Tehama, Shasta, Siskiyou, Trinity, Butte, Lassen, Plumas, and Glenn counties.
Yeah, great coverage there. So, as part of this conference, is there a goal or intention that you had, something you wanted to get out of this conference today?
Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity to keep meeting people in the different counties and working with them and collaborating with them. Getting to see their whole person and not just a little picture in a Zoom has been wonderful. And it's nice to be able to bond, network, get cell phone numbers when we have the gift of time and ease. When an actual disaster is happening, it's very fast paced and everyone's juggling a lot of balls, and having that pre-established trust and rapport and collaboration really makes it for a more smooth coordination during a disaster.
Yeah. And so one of the things that your agency has really developed is disaster case management, because you've been doing it now for a number of years.
Yes.
And so can you kind of speak to that as to why that's so important?
Sure. Disaster case management deals on the recovery phase of a disaster. A disaster could be weeks or months long, let's say, like a wildfire might be going on. So the response phase is kind of limited in time, but the recovery phase can take years. It's 2024, and they are still recovering from the Paradise Fire, the campfire in Paradise. And it takes a long time for smaller communities that are more remote. It takes time to have construction done, and it's there's only so many contractors in a small community, so it does take time. NVCSS does disaster case management, where we help guide survivors through the recovery process, and every recovery is different because it's their individual goals and their individual recovery plans. But we can help facilitate by connecting them to resources or with unmet needs roundtables or long-term recovery groups, especially those that are not insured or who are underinsured. It's really vital to keep a community healthy and vibrant by working around all the members of that community, even those that might be economically disadvantaged, and helping ensure that the community can recover fully and to avoid homelessness, which is often a side effect after a disaster happens.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, we appreciate all that you and your agency does in disaster and in coordinating with the VOAD. And so thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for joining me here today. Could you start by giving me your name and your agency and position, please?
My name is Kevin Cox, and I am the husband of the CEO and founder of the Hope Crisis Response Network.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining me here today, and I appreciate your participation in the conference.
You're welcome. Happy to do so.
So tell me, what was kind of the overarching goal, or a couple of the goals maybe, for the conference for this week?
What we were trying to accomplish was to help the local communities understand what is a true VOAD and how does a VOAD work. And we're trying to incorporate local emergency managers and incorporate local officials so that they truly understand how the VOAD is, because disasters start with the volunteer organizations responding. Then the government steps in and provides a little of assistance there, and then they end with the volunteers. And so trying to get the local EMAs to get familiar with their VOADs and help them to understand that we are the labor force for the community. We are their labor force. And it's, instead of hiring out to have certain things done, you can use a VOAD partner to step in and provide those services. The other thing to remember is that many of our volunteer organizations provide the financial assistance. When we look at a declared disaster versus an undeclared disaster, the undeclared disaster is pretty much funded 100% by the volunteer organizations. And so we're just trying to create strengthening and bridging the gaps with our local partners.
Right. And so just a variety of things that have gone on at the conferences, and you've seen a number of different people. What do you think, what's kind of your response that you're hearing from those attending?
Well, yeah, we're hearing it's been really good. The expectation has been well met with the information that we had published, and you've got 3 different specific communities that are different in the way that we've been able to approach this conference. In San Jose, Santa Clara area, we reached a really wide cultural demographic. And then in Sacramento, we hit a lot of the government personnel, and a lot of headquarters are there in Sacramento. And then we come up to Redding, and this is where in the state we've done most of the work, is in the northern part of the state with all these wildfires that we've been responding to. And so it's been really great. I think that the greatest achievement that I see not only is helping to further relationships and the networking, but I also see the importance. Case managers are getting a lot more connected, and that was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Can you just start out by giving us your name and your position?
Yeah, I'm Theresa Azevedo, and I'm with United Way of Northern California. I'm the Disaster Services Operations Manager.
All right. Tell us a little bit about the Disaster Services Manager, what kind of services you provide to the community.
Yeah, so at United Way for disaster services, we offer a multitude of services, anything from emergency financial assistance to survivors as soon as they're evacuated. We'll deploy and offer gift cards to those impacted by disasters, down to financial assistance to those living in RVs and trailers, as well as small grants to help people refurnish their homes after a disaster, as well as sitting in an unmet needs roundtable to be able to help people rebuild their homes. We also fight for equity in disasters to help make disasters more equitable across the state. And we also participate in our local VOADs, which are voluntary organizations active in disaster.
Yes, so you're very, very involved, and you actually cover quite a few counties up here as well.
Yes, we cover 9 counties in Northern California, which equates to about the size of the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, lots of people, lots of counties. So.
Yeah.
All right, and what was one of your goals as part of this conference?
One of our goals was just to bring awareness of VOADs to our friends, our neighboring agencies, just the importance of VOADs, about how agencies can come together to prepare for disasters, respond to disasters, and just how much easier it is to be able to respond to disasters when we communicate and collaborate together. Many hands make light work. And when it comes to disasters and lack of resources, we can all step in together to help our communities.
Absolutely. And so you've also been a partner with Hope Crisis Response Network, and we appreciate that. Can you speak to that a little bit as well?
Yeah, so Hope Crisis Response Network has been a huge help to us in disasters, from providing shower trailers to mill fire survivors, as well as park fire survivors, to even providing a database, disaster case management database system called VisionLink. So we heavily rely and coordinate with Hope Crisis Response Network during disasters, not just through their agency themselves, but also through the state VOAD. So anytime something comes up, we immediately call Kevin and Valerie and ask for assistance to help fill those gaps in our 9 counties, but even just for neighboring counties outside of our region as well.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here today.
Yes, my pleasure.
Could you begin by giving us your name and your agency?
Sure. I am Amy Mefford, Salvation Army Director of Disaster Services for Northern California.
And tell us a little bit about what your agency does in terms of disaster.
Yes, our agency does quite a lot during response. We will be the main agency that comes in and helps with feeding. We work alongside Red Cross, the local county shelters, and we're able to do emotional and spiritual care, mass care feeding, as well as distribution. We also assist with local response and recovery and can go into disaster recovery once the response is completed.
That's right. earlier this week, your canteen did some work for us, and there's a lot of canteens in your area,
Yes.
right? So that's one of the great things that you provide. As part of this conference, was there a goal that you had in mind coming in for the week?
I know a lot of people on Zoom and I know a lot of people on email, and just meeting them face to face and actually talking to them in person was really wonderful. The networking, learning what the different counties are doing and how they're wanting to increase their VOAD is always exciting to me. So that was one goal I really loved, to be able to connect with our community partners.
Yeah, it's so much better than people like
Yes,
this, right?
yes.
So, okay, you've also worked with Hope Crisis Response
We
Network
have.
quite a bit. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, we have worked with Hope Crisis Network for many, many years. I have an amazing working relationship with Kevin Cox on our rebuild committee. He came in and advocated a lot for our Caldor survivors as we led DCM. Also love working the LACs with you guys. I will say that Vision Lead program is just a huge key success as we go into these local assistance centers to help the survivors. And so I just greatly appreciate all the back end work that a lot of people may not see that HCRN does with the Vision Link, the computers, the internet. You guys just come in and it is just phenomenal what you guys do behind the scenes that not everybody gets to see.
All right. Well, we appreciate you being here today. Thanks for the kind words.
Thank you. Love you guys.